Madam Speaker, we made it a law in this country to ban corporal punishment in our education institutions. The institution of this program will be a very good replacement for corporal punishment. We banned corporal punishment, but we had no way of replacing the role of corporal punishment in the education sector. And I agree, corporal punishment was...
Order. There is a very serious Kamukunchi at the back on my left. The consultations are not as high, but when it comes to the laughter, Honorable Babu Owino, it is so loud that sounds like it is in a Linda Kura rally. So Honorable Babu Owino, please continue with your consultations, but make sure that the laughter is not that loud, so that you do not disturb the member for Nyeri town.
Honorable Babu Owino, do not invite me into your rally. Honorable Speaker, I was saying that the ban on corporal punishment would be adequately replaced by this program. It therefore means that Parliament will also then have to vote the resources necessary to resource and convert the infrastructure in schools into a suitable clinical counseling centers, and also provide money for the salaries and remuneration of the counselors. Madam Speaker, when we look at the loss of life that has occurred in our schools, and Nyeri has suffered. There was loss of life some time back at the Nyeri High School, then the Hill Academy in Kieni, Changuli, I think in Ukambani. The list is endless. And Madam Speaker, when we bear in mind that we have no compensation for loss of life, and no parent should ever have to suffer burying their child because they sent them to an education institution, then, Honorable Mukami, it is paramount, it is of utmost importance that actually you reshape this motion into an amendment of the Education Act, which we can fast track even as we have other businesses in this house, to entrench this very noble idea, so that we do not leave it to the whims of the Ministry of Education, and there are many excuses about scarcity of resources. But most importantly, it will also give this house an entry into the budgeting process to provide resources to support our parents and our families. Our schools are having a crisis from the triple threat, drug abuse, early teenage pregnancies, indiscipline, things that the ordinary teacher was never trained to handle as a teacher in an instruction classroom. Madam Speaker, I support and thank you for the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you. The Honorable Mishimboko, member for Likoni. And Commissioner.
Asante sana Bispika. Bispika, hata mimi nasimama kuunga hoja hii ambayo inazungumzia kuhakikisha mipango ya lazima ya kuhusiana na mwongozo na ushauri au nasaha kwa wanafunzi wetu katika shule zetu za msingi na shule zetu za upili. Nataka nizungumzie masuala haya, Mheshimiwa Bispika, tumeyazungumzia sana hata katika bunge mbili za nyuma zilizopita. Lakini nashukuru sana ya kwamba hoja hii imezungumzia kwamba lazima tuhakikishe kuwa kutakuwa na sera za kitaifa, kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeweza kuandika hawa walimu ambao watakuwa ni washauri wa kupatiana mwongozo kwa wanafunzi wetu, na pia kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeweza kuweka fedha ambazo zitahakikisha ya kwamba mipango hii ambayo tutaipanga itaweza kuthibitika na mipango ambayo itakuwa ni mipango endelevu. Hilo ni jambo la msingi sana. Na kwamba pia tutahakikisha ya kwamba tunaweka mipango ya kuunganisha elimu ya mambo ya kiafya katika yale masomo ambayo tunafundisha katika shule zetu. Tunajiuliza ya kwamba kwa nini tuwe na mwongozo na ushauri? Wanafunzi wengi sasa hivi katika shule zetu tunaona wanakumbwa na changamoto nyingi sana. Kuna changamoto za madawa ya kulevya yameweza kuingia katika mashule yetu na watoto wetu wakawa wanatumia madawa yale. Tunaona ya kwamba pia mitandao imechangia katika ushawishi. Ina ushawishi mzuri na pia una ushawishi ambao ni mbaya katika maisha ya mwanafunzi katika mambo yake ya kielimu. Vile vile tunaona pia tuna changamoto ya kijamii. Jamii zetu nyingi utapata ndoa nyingi zimevunjika, hivyo basi watoto wanabaki na mzazi mmoja, pengine wanabaki na mama ama pengine wanabaki na baba, na inakuwa ni changamoto kubwa sana. Wanafunzi wanapitia kule majumbani ambapo hawawezi kuzungumza pengine wakiwa shule, lakini wanahitaji ushauri. Vile vile pia tunaona ya kwamba kuna changamoto ya kiuchumi. Watoto pia wengine wamezaliwa katika hali ya umaskini sana, hivyo basi kuwapatia msongamano wa mawazo na kuwapatia changamoto sana katika elimu zao. Je, tunajiuliza katika mambo ya mwongozo na ushauri yanasaidia nini katika wanafunzi wetu? Tunaona kwamba hata katika kuchagua masomo yale ambao wataendelea nao lazima wapate ushauri na mwongozo. Iwapo utataka taaluma fulani kule mbele baada ya masomo, lazima upate mwongozo. Je, ni masomo gani utatia bidii na ni masomo gani utapatia kipao mbele ili uweze kufikia shabaha yako? Vile vile pia tunaweza kusema ya kwamba itakupatia maamuzi sahihi wakati utakuwa umepata mwongozo na ushauri wa kufaa. Vile vile mwanafunzi akiwa na msongamano wa mawazo ambao imefikia mpaka ile kwa Kiingereza tunasema stress ama tunaita Kiingereza depression, yani msongamano wa mawazo ambao unaleta itilafu ya kiakili. Msongamano wa mawazo kama hino uletea paka watoto kujitoa uhai ama kutaka kujitoa uhai, na kuletea pia kuweza kupigana, kuweza kuleta uhasama katika zile shule. Hivyo basi lazima tuweze kupata ushauri. Vile vile pia katika mambo ya kuacha madawa ya kulevya, lazima watoto hawa tuwapatie mwongozo na tuwapatie ushauri, kwa sababu si rahisi iwapo mtoto ameingilia madawa ya kulevya na amemuingia sana katika mwili wake na katika damu. Lazima awe anapata ushauri na zile dawa ambazo atakuwa anatumia, na huko anashauriwa kwa nini inafaa aweze kuacha mawazo kama yale. Tumeona matukio mingi sana. Juzi tuliona shule moja na tukaona wanafunzi na walimu wakipigana mawe. Walimu wamejificha pale wanarusha mawe na wanafunzi nao wanarusha mawe. Taswira kama hizi ni taswira mbaya sana katika jamii yetu na katika taifa letu. Na taswira kama hii haiwezi kuondoka kama hatutakuwa na ushauri na kupeana nasaha kwa wanafunzi wetu, na hata walimu pia waweze kupata nasaha, ndiposa kuwe na uwezo mzuri ama ushirikiano mzuri ya mwanafunzi na mwalimu, na pia kuwe na ushirikiano mzuri ya mwanafunzi na mzazi. Na yote haya yanatokana na kuweza kupatiana nasaha kama inavyostahili. Pia vile vile nataka nizungumzie swala ambazo ni la kuongeza ujasiri. Mwanafunzi lazima awe na ujasiri katika mambo ya kielimu. Na je, atapata vipi ujasiri? Ujasiri pia unakuja na kupatiwa mwongozo na kupatiwa ushauri na kupatiwa mifano na kuelezewa wale waliokuwa kabla nyinyi hamjafika walikuwa vipi na walifanya vipi mpaka wakaweza kutimiza malengo yao. Kwa hivyo jambo kama hili ni jambo muhimu sana. Kujua hisia. Vipi tutajua hisia za wanafunzi? Wanafunzi ni wengi na kila mwanafunzi ana tabia zake, na kila mwanafunzi huwa ana hisia ya jambo fulani. Lakini tukiwa na ushauri, iwapo utamuita mwanafunzi ukae naye na umshauri, utajua hisia zake ziko wapi. Hata ikiwa wamekuwa na hisia mbaya, hisia nzito ama kupanga matukio mabaya, lakini kukiwa na mambo ya ushauri utaweza kujua ya kwamba hapa mambo hayako sawa na hapa kunaweza kuwa na hatari. Hivyo basi lazima tuweze kutoa ushauri na mwongozo. Kuepuka vishawishi. Kuna vishawishi vingi sana vibaya ambavyo sasa hivi vinapatiwa wanafunzi wetu. Vishawishi vya mambo mabaya, hata haya mambo ya ambayo tunazungumzia, mambo ya masago, poleni sana, mambo ya ushoga, ni mambo ambayo yanatokea na vishawishi vingi sana kupitia mitandao, kupitia marafiki na kupitia mambo mengi sana, kwa sababu karne tulionayo ni karne tata sana. Ni karne ambayo inaleta mambo mengi sana. Bila mwongozo na ushauri, basi kizazi chetu kichanga kitaweza kupotea sana na tutakuwa tunapoteza taifa letu la Kenya. Pia tunataka kutoa ushauri na mwongozo ili kuleta uadilifu. uadilifu na kuweza kumweka mtu ya kwamba awe nafsi yake inakuwa na uadilifu, lazima kuwe na ushauri, na ushauri hauwezi kuwa mpaka kuwe na mwongozo. Na wakati tunazungumzia mambo ya ushauri na mwongozo, lazima tuweke mikakati ya kuhakikisha kwamba jambo hili litafanyika na litafana na litakuwa endelevu. Tumekuwa tukizungumzia haya maneno mengi sana na matukio mengi sana na visa vingi sana. Shule leo zinachomwa. Kwa nini shule zichomwe? Kwa nini wanafunzi wachome wenzao? Kwa nini ifikie kiwango mpaka mwanafunzi aweze kwenda kuwasha moto, bweni zichomeke na wanafunzi waweze kuchomeka? Ni ukosefu wa ushauri. Lakini iwapo kuna ushauri, kwa sababu wajua watoto vitu vidogo sana vinawapatia hisia kali sana. Unaona kwamba mwalimu labda alisema leteni pesa, tutawapeleka katika kutembea, pengine kuangalia mbuga za wanyama. Alafu pengine ile tarehe ya kwenda imekosekana, wamesema hatuendi mwezi huu, tutakwenda mwezi ujao. Hiyo inaweza kuleta hisia kali na watoto pale wakaanza hasira na wakachoma shule. Lakini tukiwa na washauri, wanaweza kuwaketisha na washauri kwa njia ya nasaha, ili waweze kuona kwa nini hatukwenda sasa na tutakwenda wakati mwingine. Kwa hivyo tutaweza kuepuka hasara nyingi sana ambazo zinatokea katika mashule yetu, hasara nyingi ambazo zinatokea majumbani mwetu kupitia hawa wanafunzi wetu ambao sisi tunao kule majumbani. Kwa hivyo Bi Speaker, mimi nataka niseme ya kwamba ilmu ya ushauri na ilmu ya mwongozo, mbali ya kuwa tunazungumzia mambo ya shule hivi sasa, lakini tukiangalia hata taasisi zetu katika serikali, kama taasisi ya jeshi ambao ni walinzi wetu wakubwa kulinda taifa letu, wanapitia changamoto nyingi sana. Polisi wetu wanapitia changamoto nyingi sana, ambapo taasisi hizi zote zinahitaji ushauri ili tuweze kuepuka yale mambo mengi. Unasikia maskari wamepigana marisasi, unasikia askari amempiga bibi yake risasi, ama askari mwanamke amempiga risasi mume wake, na matukio mingi sana yale ambayo yanatokea. Hata unasikia askari amekuwa kwa barabara, ameanza kurusha risasi tu, amepiga risasi tu kiolela. Kwa hivyo hili swala la mwongozo na ushauri ni swala ambalo ni kubwa sana. Katika mashule tunaona ile kwa Kiingereza tunasema bullying. Na hii bullying hata mimi pia ilinipata wakati nikiwa shule ya upili. Unapata mnaambiwa nyinyi mmekuja sasa, nyinyi ni wachanga, hamujui mambo na lazima muonyeshwe mambo, mipango ndio muweze kukazana. Katika njia zile mnafanyiwa maonevu mengi, mnadhilalishwa, na watoto wengine roho zao ni ndogo, wakifanyiwa mambo kama yale wanaona uonevu mwingi sana, wanakuwa na hisia na wanaweza kufanya jambo baya kama kujitoa uhai ama kama kufanya kitu chochote kingine kibaya. Kwa hivyo kukiwa na wale washauri, najua hivi sasa tuna wale ambao tunawaita kwa Kiingereza matron, ambao wako kule katika bweni zetu za zile shule za bweni, lakini wale hawatoshi. Na yule utapata kwamba bweni nzima ni mmoja peke yake. Mmoja hawezi kufanya ushauri na mwongozo kwa wanafunzi wote. Kwa hivyo tuhakikishe tuna washauri wa kutosha, tuhakikishe kuna fedha za kuweza kukimu hawa washauri walioko, tuhakikishe ya kwamba tumeweka miundo misingi ya kuhakikisha kwamba jambo hili litafanikisha na litakuwa endelevu, na si kwa mashule peke yake, lakini kwa taasisi zetu zote za sekta zetu za kiserikali na hata zile za kibinafsi. Hata kule makazini kwetu tunakofanya kazi, kuna mambo mengi sana. Watu wanatoka nyumbani, mtu unakuja kazini ukiwa na hamasa, ukiwa na tafash nyingi sana, umetoka nazo kule nyumbani, umekosana na mke wako, umekosana na mume wako, yote yale unapeleka katika pale unapofanya kazi, na kunakuwa na msongamano na kunakuwa na vita. Kwa hivyo tunasema tunashukuru sana Bi Rahab kwa sababu ya kuleta hoja hii. Ni hoja asante sana Bi Speaker.
Asante Mheshimiwa Mishi. Mheshimiwa Amina Mnyazi, mbunge wa Malindi.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Na nasimama hapa Mheshimiwa Spika kuunga mswada wenye ambao umeletwa hapa mbele ya nyumba hii na dadangu Rahab, Mheshimiwa Rahab. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, ninaunga mswada huu mkono kwa sababu zifuatazo. Mheshimiwa Spika, maisha yetu ya sasa ambao tunaishi sisi si kama ile maisha yenye ambao wazazi wetu wameweza kuyapitia, wala si kama yale maisha ambayo mababu zetu na manyanya zetu yenye ambao wameweza kuyapitia. Mheshimiwa Spika, wanafunzi wa saizi, watoto wa saizi wanapitia changamoto zingine kali ambazo sisi hatujaweza kuzipitia wakati sisi tukiwa watoto. Watoto wetu sisi ndo tunasema ni viongozi wetu wa kesho. Na mimi naunga mkono mswada Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu katika hawa viongozi wetu wa kesho lazima wawe na miundo misingi bora. Misingi yao ya maisha yao lazima tuwe tumeiweka sawa sawa, na katika vitu venye ambavyo tunaweza tukasaidia hawa viongozi wetu wa kesho ni kuhakikisha ya kwamba katika mashule yetu tumeweza kuweka mwongozo na ushauri thabiti ili iweze kuwasaidia na maisha yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukweli wa maneno ni kwamba sisi kama wazazi tunaofanya kazi, tunaotoka nje pale kwenda kuhustle, kuanzia saa 2 za asubuhi mpaka jioni, sisi hatukai na watoto wetu. Watoto wetu, ukweli wa maneno Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba wanakaa katika mashule masaa mengi ya maisha yao ya utotoni. Na ndio maana sisi Waswahili tunasema samaki mkunje angali mbichi. Ni wakati ule watoto wakiwa wadogo ndipo ambapo tunapaswa kuwapatia ushauri na mwongozo mwafaka ili kuweza kuwasaidia katika maisha yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, shule zetu zimelemewa, walimu wetu wamelemewa, watoto wetu wanaangamia, na si ati kwamba kwa sababu hawataki kusoma, bali wanapitia masaibu mazito ya kisaikolojia bila usaidizi wowote wa kitaalamu. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunahitaji walimu ambao watakao kuajiriwa na TSC, ambayo kazi yao asubuhi hadi jioni itakuwa ni kusikiliza, kulinda na kuwaponya watoto wetu kisaikolojia. Tunashukuru ile kazi ambao walimu wetu wanafanya saizi, lakini hatuwezi kuwapatia walimu wetu mzigo mwingine ya kuweza kufanya masuala ya mwongozo na ushauri. Wacha walimu wale ambao ni wa TSC waweze kufanya kazi yao ya kufundisha hawa watoto, na tuweze kuleta experts, tuweze kuleta wataalamu ambao wanaielewa hii kazi. Mheshimiwa Spika, unajua mtu mwenye ambaye anafanya hii kazi kuna vipengele ambavyo lazima ameweza kuvifikia. Lazima awe ni mtu ambaye ni mcheshi, lazima awe ni mtu ambaye yuko friendly, lazima ni mtu ambaye anaelewa saikolojia ya watoto, mtu ambaye anaweza kutangamana na wao, na mtu mwenye ambaye watoto watakuwa kwa karibu na wako na urahisi wa kuzungumza na kufunguka yale matatizo ambao wao wanayapitia. Hawa walimu wetu saizi, Mheshimiwa Spika, nikizungumza kuhusu masuala ya Malindi na Kilifi County, kuna asilimia 15.9 ya wanafunzi wetu wanaougua ugonjwa wa msongo wa mawazo ambao kwa kizungu inaitwa depression. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna asilimia 10.6 ambao wanaishi na kiwewe na wasiwasi uliopitiliza. Kwa kizungu hiyo inaitwa anxiety. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia vile vile inasikitisha na inatisha zaidi kusema ya kwamba asilimia ya wanafunzi pale Malindi na ndani ya Kilifi County 40.2 ya wasichana wetu balehe wamewahi kufikiria na kujaribu kujitoa uhai. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikikumbuka vizuri sana, kuanzia mwaka jana mpaka dakika hii, Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeweza kuzika zaidi ya watu 8 ndani ya Malindi constituency ambao wameweza kujitoa uhai kwa sababu ya msongo wa mawazo. Na katika hao watu 8, Mheshimiwa Spika, mmoja wao alikuwa ni mwanafunzi ambaye alikuwa bado anaendelea na masomo yake na aliweza kujitoa uhai kwa sababu ya shida kama hizi. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, pia vile vile ni lazima watu kama hawa waweze kupata, sisi wazazi tuweze kufanya jukumu letu, walimu waweze kufanya jukumu lao, lakini tukiweka mtu kama hivi, mtaalamu kama huyu mwenye ambaye atakuwa anawasaidia kwa mwongozo na ushauri, haya matatizo ya hawa wenye ambao wako na ugonjwa wa mawazo, wenye ambao wako na wasiwasi, wenye ambao wamejifikiria kujiua, angalau watapata nafasi ya kuweza kuzungumza na kuweza kufunguka, na asilimia kubwa wataweza pia vile vile kusaidika. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, kule ndani ya Malindi na Kilifi County pia vile vile inasikitisha kusema ya kwamba asilimia 12 ya wasichana wenye umri ya miaka 15 hadi 19 wameweza kupata ujauzito na tayari na kina mama. Mheshimiwa Spika, niko na imani ya kwamba tukipata wataalamu kama hawa ambao wataweza kuinteract na kujadiliana na hawa watoto, idadi ya ile asilimia 12.5 itakwenda kupungua. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunataka tujue ni sababu gani watoto wanapata mimba za mapema. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunataka mtu mwenye ambaye anaweza kufungukiwa, ambaye anaweza kufanya urafiki na hawa watoto, ili kuhakikisha ya kwamba haya matatizo ya mimba za mapema tumeweza kuzisawazisha. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia vile vile masuala ya Pwani, tuko na matatizo ya madawa ya kulevya. Mheshimiwa Spika, ambazo takwimu zinaonesha ya kwamba asilimia 84 ya watumiaji madawa ya kulevya katika ukanda wetu wameingizwa kwenye matumizi ya bangi na vile vile mogokaa na miraa. Uraibu kama huu unaanza mashuleni. Mheshimiwa Spika, na ndio maana tunaona umuhimu wa jambo kama hili kulazimishwa kuwekwa katika orodha yetu na masomo yetu ya shule, ili hawa watoto waweze kusaidika. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, ijapokuwa tunaunga mkono huu mswada ya kwamba tuweze kupata mtaalamu atakaye kusaidia wanafunzi wetu pale shule, haimaanishi ya kwamba jukumu pia sisi kama wazazi tuliweze kulisahau. Mheshimiwa Spika, watoto ni wetu sisi, tunawazaa sisi, tunawalea sisi. Hii kama program itakuwa inaendelea, Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nitoe wito wangu kwa wazazi wa Kenya, wazazi wenzangu, kuambia ya kwamba jukumu la mtoto la kwanza ni lako wewe mzazi. Wazazi tuweze kujukumika na tuweze kukubali majukumu yetu, tukae na watoto wetu, tuwe tunazungumza nao vizuri, na sisi kama serikali tuweze kuingililia kati, tuweze kuweka wataalamu wenye ambao wataweza kuwasaidia hawa watoto wetu na masuala ya mwongozo na ushauri. Ushauri wangu ni kwamba wabunge wenzangu tuweze kuungana, tuweze kupitisha huu mswada, TSC waweze kufanya hayo maneno, tuweze kuweka hawa walimu ili tuweze kusaidia wanafunzi wetu. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Asante. The Honorable Irene Mayaka, nominated member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to also add my voice to this very important motion. Motion that has been sponsored by the Honorable Rehab Mukami. And Honorable Speaker, just to thank Honorable Mukami for bringing this particular motion, because at this particular point, when you look at the different generations that we do have, and Honorable Amina also alluded to the same, we have a generation that is now extremely exposed, not only to social media, but access to different forms of information, whether it's through television, radio, social media, or even the interactions that our children and the younger generation have. Honorable Speaker, this is a generation that has access to a lot of things that are going on, and not only in our country, but across the entire globe. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, it is very important that this particular motion is coming at this particular time, because it is very crucial that we do have in place a proper, mandatory and structured and well-framed guidance and counseling program in all public and private primary and secondary schools. And Honorable Speaker, one of the reasons why I really support this is because when you look at the whole year, in terms of the 12 months of a year, our children spend most of their time within the school environment. They spend most of their time with their teachers. And yes, Honorable Speaker, in as much as we
Honorable
also
Ruto, you have a point of order?
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Listening to the contributions from members in this floor of the House, appreciating the fact that every member is in support of this particular motion presented by Honorable Rahab Mukami, member of Parliament, Nyeri County. I want to stand under Standing Order number 95, that the mover could be called to reply. Thank you.
Honorable members, I need to put this to test. Honorable members, is it the mood of the House that I call upon the mover to reply? Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I'll call upon the mover to reply, and I will encourage you to, if you actually.
Honorable Speaker.
Order, Honorable Mukami. Oh, okay. Thank you. Honorable Mukami, you may go ahead and reply. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, I would request we allow the honorable member to finish, and I would donate 2 minutes to Ruto, Mudhoni, Janet, and the honorable member, because they've been sitting
I know,
here.
thank you. I know you have been magnanimous, and we keep learning. Even when I sit on this seat, I also learn. I already missed the opportunity to give a chance to the Honorable Mayaka, so that one is closed. And also on your part, you can only reply. You do not have now the liberty to donate. So please go ahead and reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank each and every member who have supported this motion. And I want to tell members I've listened keenly. And what I'm going to do next, I'll make sure that I'll make an amendment of the Education Act and make sure that we reduce this into a bill. And I'm sure the members who really wanted to support this, they will support it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to reply. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable members, I now put the question. That aware that learners in primary and secondary schools across the country are increasingly exposed to social, psychological, and behavioral challenges, including drug and substance abuse, indiscipline, school unrest, academic underperformance, noting that there has been a disturbing rise in cases of sexual violence against children, including incidents where minors are abused or killed by individuals known to them, including relatives and caregivers, thereby exposing learners to trauma and long-term psychological harm. Further noting that many learners come from homes affected by domestic violence, family inability, economic hardships, and other social pressures that adversely affect their emotional well-being, safety, and concentration in school. Concerned that guidance and services in most primary and secondary schools remain informal, inadequately structured, and under-resourced, with no standardized national framework to ensure underperformance, accountability, and effective delivery, appreciating that structured psychological support, life skills training, child protection awareness, and early intervention during formative years are critical in safeguarding learners, strengthening resilience, promoting discipline, and improving academic outcomes. This House therefore resolves that the government, through the Ministry of Education, 1, introduces a mandatory, structured, and timetable-guided guidance and counseling program in all public and primary schools, public and private primary and secondary schools in Kenya. 2, develops and implements a national policy framework providing for recruitment, accreditation, and deployment of professional training school counselors. 3, integrates mental health education, child protection awareness, personal safety training, and life skills development into school curriculum. 4, allocates adequate resources to support counseling services in schools, and establishes clear coordination and referral mechanisms between schools, child protection institutions, and relevant government agencies to ensure effective safeguarding of learners. Will as many as have that opinion say aye? Will as many as have a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 12, motion, policy to develop a structured engagement of National Youth Service graduates as security officers in government institutions.
Thank you. Honorable members, the Honorable Gertrude Mbeyu is not in the House, so order number 12 is hereby deferred.
Order number 13, motion, formulation of a policy on power subsidies for export-oriented agricultural production.
Thank you, honorable members. The Honorable Gathoni Mushomba is not in, she is not in the House, so order number 13 is also hereby deferred.
Order number 14, motion, streamlining admission, capitation, and infrastructural management in senior schools.
The Honorable Gisairo Clive.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that are aware that the Kenya education sector has faced escalating infrastructure pressures culminating in overstretched facilities, particularly in boarding schools. Concerned that despite the introduction of an online learner placement portal in December 2025 by the Ministry of Education to widen access and expedite transfers among schools, there continues to be inequitable outcomes, disproportionately disadvantaging rural learners who suffer digital exclusion, acknowledging that parental preference for Category 1, commonly known as C1, and Category 2, C2 schools owing to their improved infrastructure, including boarding amenities, causes over-enrollment in C1 and C2 schools, recalling that during the inaugural admission of grade 10 learners into senior schools in January 2026, under the competency-based curriculum, some C1 and C2 schools invariably admitted learners at double or more of their approved capacity, noting that this tendency leaves most Category 3 and Category 4 schools severely under-enrolled, some below their viable enrollment capacity, concerned that the current capitation model based on the number of learners per school is not only misaligned with actual school facilities, but also encourages over-enrollment by some schools in pursuit of higher capitation funding, observing that the resultant overcrowding in C1 and C2 schools has eroded the recommended teacher-to-student ratio of 1:40, fueled teacher burnout, diminished instructional quality, affected individual learner attention, overstretched facilities, and compromised learner safety in cases of emergencies. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with other relevant government agencies and stakeholders, recalibrate the education capitation formula to reflect actual infrastructural capacity and ensure that schools receive proportional and equitable capitation so as to incentivize enrollment diversification and achieve equitable distribution of learners across the school's categories. 2, develops and enforces guidelines for capping the number of streams per category of schools at a maximum of 10 for C1 schools, 8 for C2 schools, 5 for C3, and 3 for C4 schools, with each stream not exceeding 40 students, and 3, implements a targeted and accelerated infrastructural upgrade program in C3 and C4 schools, including classrooms, laboratories, ICT hubs, boarding sanitation and amenities, so as to achieve infrastructure standardization across all categories of schools, safeguard the quality of education, and systematically eliminate overcrowding in C1 and C2 schools. Honorable Speaker, I think this House is much aware that cases of fires in schools, including the most recent at Utumishi, these cases make the headlines in this country, but shortly after, the country moves on. We have never bothered as a country to address the root cause of the problems we face in our schools. Honorable Speaker, after the school fires, we had ministry officials saying that part of the reason of our problem is the 100% transition. Honorable Speaker, there is nothing further from the truth, because the number of secondary schools in Kenya can still comfortably absorb and accommodate all the students who transition from the primary level. Honorable Speaker, Kenya today has 9,500 secondary schools. These are split into 204 C1 schools, 692 C2, 1,373 C3 schools, and 7,234 C4 schools. Honorable Speaker, the appetite towards feeling that all students need to go to C1 schools is where our problem begins. If the ministry and the government put an effort, concerted effort, to ensure that we improve infrastructure in all our schools in this republic, because the teachers are the same, the teachers have similar qualifications, then we will avert these problems. The appetite for us having our children in boarding schools separates the parents from the children, and sometimes parents do not know the behavioral change of their very own children. Honorable Speaker, money follows the child in the current capitation system. Some schools have even resorted to exam cheating to be seen to be well-performing and attract students, therefore turning our schools into business centers. A school with 3,000 students, Honorable Speaker, with one football pitch, a dining hall with a capacity of less than 1,000, no basketball court, no swimming pool. All these add to the pressures whereby the child do not have places to do extracurricular activities, which helps them in easing their pressure, the academic pressure of the day-to-day that they get in schools, and pressure from their parents to perform. Honorable Speaker, education is not our business, but we are all aware that some principals in this country have seen an opportunity in the schools. Honorable Speaker, if this motion is adopted and implemented, C1 schools will only be allowed to admit not exceeding 400 students in grade 10. If this is done for 3 consecutive years, a C1 school will not exceed 1,200 students. A C2 schools will not exceed 960, C3 will not exceed 600, and C4 will not exceed 360. Honorable Speaker, this will ensure schools that have 20 students now start getting students, and therefore capitation will follow them. This will mean, therefore, Honorable Speaker, that capitation alone, which as per government policy is 22,000 shillings, C1 schools will be getting a maximum of 244,000, up from the current, where a C1 school with over 2,500 students will be receiving over 26 million, whereas a C4 schools will be receiving 55 million, whereas a C4 school receives 1.3 million. There is no way we'll improve these schools if we do not have students in these schools, because capitation will always follow the child. Honorable Speaker, we now do have a C1 school, a number of them, where the principal runs a budget that is more than 3 constituencies combined. Honorable Speaker, a school with 3,500 students, capitation alone from government will be 77 million. Add to uniforms that they collect around 20,000 per student, that's another 70 million. Remedial classes and other activities that they charge that are never accounted for fully exceeds 52 million. Honorable Speaker, the school fees for a C1 school is normally over 120,000 per child, and this leads to 420 million. And therefore, this school alone should even be having their principals come to committees of parliament to account for the public funds, because this school at some point receives up to a tune of 1 billion in a year. These inequalities, Honorable Speaker, is what has led that even when government officials, we visit some of these schools, we see the magnitude of the school and we say we are giving this school 100 billion. Yet there is a school in most of the constituencies here that doesn't even have a single laboratory. If we have this motion adopted, Honorable Speaker, we are going to have equitable distribution of number of students across the country. We will not have pressures of the children not being attended to due to the sheer numbers of classes. A school having 33 streams in grade 10 alone, totaling 100 streams in a school. A principal trying to manage over 3,500 students means also that the staff room population is big. And therefore, the principal will not only be dealing with students, but also will be handling staff room politics. Honorable Speaker, exams management in some of these schools is also a nightmare and a headache for Kenya National Examination Council. Once a school that has a candidature enrollment of over 1,000 students and with a standard spacing, this is a nightmare for Kenya National Examination Council. And we've severally sat with Kenya National Examination Council, and you do realize most challenges come from these overpopulated schools because their infrastructure is not well suited and designed to handle these numbers during exam periods. Honorable Speaker, when these school fires took place and a number of students were interviewed, a few issues did come up. Number one, most students were saying, we are not being listened to. No one pays attention to us. This is understood because if a class has 50 students and a teacher's workload is more than thrice, the class teacher will never have time to go and interact and get to know what his or her students are up to, what challenges they face, what mental issues they may be having, what problems they may be carrying from home. That lack of individualized attention, Honorable Speaker, is what leads these children to now adapt to groupings and peer pressure that causes easy negative influence on the actions and behaviors of our young children. Honorable Speaker, as we've always said, education is not a competition. Education is aimed at imparting knowledge and preparing young people to fit into the society and be productive citizens in building a nation in their days where they are now adults. Today, Honorable Speaker, most schools have been converted to business enterprise. Most schools are seen how much cereals can be supplied, how much fees can be collected. So the boards and management of schools do focus on that. Honorable Speaker, if we put a cap on this, we will take education back to what it was supposed to be, where the teacher and school management know their core role is to educate the child. We need to cut the numbers. We need to have a cap that the system at the ministry, if you are category C1, it will lock the moment you hit 400 students in admission. And that will allow the students to be absorbed by other schools. Honorable Speaker, I thank you, and I would like to request Honorable Irene Mayaka to second.
Go ahead, Honorable Irene Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. And Honorable Speaker, I'd like to really thank the Honorable Clive Gisairo, who who is from my home county of Nyamira County, for this very important motion, which I seek to second. And it's a motion that seeks to streamline admission, capitation, and infrastructure management in senior schools. Honorable Speaker, as has been said by the mover of this particular motion, is that if you look at the different categorization of our schools at the moment, and especially the admissions and intakes, and this was really experienced during the grade 10, where we witnessed some of the national schools took in students way more than the capacity that they actually were allowed. And Honorable Speaker, if we do have a structural way in which we ensure that the different schools in the different categories, whether it's category 1, category C2, C3 or C4, actually are capped in terms of the numbers that they are able to take, then in that way, Honorable Speaker, we'll be able to ensure that the students are actually getting better management in terms of the learning, in terms of safety, in terms of the environment, the learning environment in which they operate under. And Honorable Speaker, even the teacher-student ratio, because it does not really make sense when you have different classes in a stream. The teacher does not even know the names of the students because the students tend to be too many. So there's no that personal relationship between a student and the teacher. The second thing, Honorable Speaker, is about the bed capacity, especially in boarding schools. If it is a school that say for example, grade 10 is supposed to have 400 students, but they end up being almost 800. So that means that in some instances, you could even have children sharing beds, which, Honorable Speaker, has led to a lot of immoral issues that we are being faced with. And so, Honorable Speaker, this is quite very important because schools sometimes, because a lot of students are passing, and so they tend to not be able to say no to students who have done well in school, despite the fact that they don't have capacity for this. And Honorable Speaker, even the quality of meals that our students are actually getting in schools is affected. Because a school that is meant to have 1,000 students, but now has 2,000 students, it means that the quality of food that they get is actually not very good. Honorable Speaker, some of the issues that we've had, the strikes, the burning of schools, are as a result of some of these things, Honorable Speaker. And so it is incumbent upon us as a National Assembly to ensure that we are putting in place and we are telling the ministry to put guidelines and structures in place that are very specific and that cannot be affected by these circumstances. Honorable Speaker, just to mention that, for example, right now, even when you look at the university entrance, like one of the issues that is being faced by the medical faculty is that they are admitting more students than they should actually be admitting in some of the top universities. And these are the repercussions and issues that the COOPS is having, that the different departments within the education system is having, that are really causing problems to an extent that there is no quality education that people are receiving. And Honorable Speaker, also, we want to have more alliances, more mangus, more precious bloods across the whole country. So if we do have this in place, it means that the amounts of capitation will actually dwindle down to the other school institutions that we do have, and a good spread of resources. Because as they say, Honorable Speaker, is that money follows functions. And therefore, the schools that we do have, you find that a school like a school in Nyamira that is equally as good infrastructure, but because majority of the students have gone to Nyambaria High School, which is a national school, or Sironga Girls, which is a national school, so the other schools end up suffering in terms of not getting capitation being distributed to those schools, and therefore the students who are there actually suffer. So, Honorable Speaker, I just want to say that this is a very, very important motion that the Honorable Clive Gisairo has brought, and knowing the fact that he sits in the Education Committee, I know he has a lot of experience in terms of feedback that they do receive from different institutions, as well as state departments within the education structure about this particular issue. So I want to support this particular motion by seconding it and encouraging the other honorable members to also support this motion so that it can then move forward into the implementation level. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I do second and I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mayaka. Honorable members, I now propose the question that aware that Kenya's education sector has faced escalating infrastructure pressures, culminating in overstretched facilities, particularly in boarding schools. Concerned that despite the introduction of an online learner placement portal in December 2025 by the Ministry of Education to widen access and expedite transfers among schools, there continues to be inequitable outcomes, disproportionately disadvantaged rural learners who suffer digital exclusion. Acknowledging that parental preference for Category 1 or C1, Category 2, C2 schools owing to their improved infrastructure, including boarding amenities, causes of enrollment in C1 and C2 schools. Recalling that during the inaugural admission of grade 10 learners into senior schools in January 2026, under the competency-based curriculum, some C1 and C2 schools invariably admitted learners at double or more of their approved capacity. Noting that this tendency leaves most C3 and C4 schools severely under-enrolled, some below their viable enrollment capacity, concerned that the current capitation model, based on the number of learners per school, is not only misaligned with actual school facilities, but also encourages over-enrollment by some schools in pursuit of a higher capitation funding, observing that the resultant overcrowding of C1 and C2 schools has eroded the recommended teacher-to-student ratio of 1:40, fueled teacher burnout, diminished instructional quality, affected individual learner attention, overstretched facilities, and compromised learner safety in cases of emergencies. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with other relevant government agencies and stakeholders, 1, recalibrates the education capitation formula to reflect actual infrastructural capacity and ensure that school receives proportional and equitable capitation as to incentivize enrollment, diversification, and achieve equitable distribution of learners across school categories. 2, develops and enforces guidance for capping the number of streams per category of schools at a maximum of 10 for C1 schools, 8 for C2 schools, 5 for C3, and 3 for C4 schools, while each stream not exceeding 40 students. And 3, implements a targeted and accelerated infrastructural upgrade program in C3 and C4 schools, including classrooms, laboratories, ICT hubs, boarding, sanitation, and amenities, so as to achieve infrastructure standardization across all categories of schools, safeguarding the quality of education and systematically eliminate overcrowding in C1 and C2 schools. Honorable members, we can now go ahead and debate. I see Honorable Mishi's card in the House, but I believe she has stepped out for another matter. I now give this opportunity to the Honorable Dorothy Kiara, nominated member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I really want to thank the Honorable Member, Giseiro, for coming up with this very important motion where he is seeking streamlining admission, capitation, and infrastructure management in our senior schools. Honorable Speaker, it is important for all of us to agree that education in this country is a basic right. And in the Article 53 of our Constitution of Kenya, it provides for this free compulsory education. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, 100% transition of our students is not the reason why we are where we are in the education sector. Madam Speaker, it is important for all of us to admit that we have enough schools in this country. Coupled with what this government, this administration of Daktari William Samoei Ruto has managed to do and achieve in the last 4 years. 100,000 teachers additional to what was already existing is no means. It's not a small means, Honorable Madam Speaker. And therefore, Honorable Madam Speaker, I don't want to dwell on so much on what failed structural systems can do. Because, Honorable Madam Speaker, here we are only talking about one thing, a policy lapse. Because every school in this country is known the capacity that it can accommodate. But because, Honorable Speaker, we all fail to feel sufficient that our children, including our own students, can be able to learn in a local school and achieve. This is why we all crave and want to overcrowd schools that have a title. I dare say, Honorable Speaker, these schools are not overcrowded by our local communities. It is as they reach. We want our children to go to Alliance. We want our children to go to Nairobi School. We want our children to go to the Nana. And subsequently, what we do is we go and insert a lot of pressure to the principals in these schools because they are commanded to take more than the capacity, what they can accommodate. Honorable Speaker, I don't think an ordinary Kenyan can force a Kenya high school principal to accommodate an extra student in that school. So the capacity is well known. But because of the culture of us Kenyans, wanting to do things always so that we can turn around again and complain, that is why we are where we are. Honorable Madam Speaker, I want to agree with what Honorable Gesailo is trying to advance. Overstressed facilities, compromised learners' safety, especially in terms of emergencies. And we have had these emergencies in the very recent in the very recent times. And we are waiting for another calamity in the future so that we can come back again here and ask what is it that is not happening. We don't correct the mistakes that we are in. Honorable Madam Speaker, we have the full burnout of our teachers in schools which are overcrowded. Whereas, Madam Speaker, we have schools in this country where teachers will sit in the staff room having very few lessons to teach because they don't have enough students. I want to agree with the Honorable Member because he is seeking that we have improved infrastructure in all our schools. It is not difficult, Honorable Madam Speaker, for us to change all our schools and turn them to the level of C1. If we wanted to do that, we can do it. We have the capacity. We have all what it takes. And we have examples of schools that are doing exemplarily too well in academics, regardless of what grade those schools, how those schools have been classified. Honorable Madam Speaker, I want to give an example of a school in Egembe South. Egembe South constituency, where the school has a capacity of over 1,500 students. It is a day school, Honorable Madam Speaker. I will not say the infrastructure is equally improved in this school under the leadership and stewardship of Honorable John Paul Mwirigi, who was a former student in that day school. This day school has been doing very well. Last year, they had 400 students. And out of the 400, 308 translated to the university. That means, Honorable Madam Speaker, education and the quality of education that we want to achieve in this country is all in our minds. It is not in alliance. It is not in the C1 schools, Honorable Madam Speaker. So ideally, I want our parents to know we don't have to overcrowd in any institutions to achieve what our students will achieve at the end of their 4 years. Honorable Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to urge the authorities in this country. We are the ones who formulate these policies. And the Ministry of Education does not land short of policies. Let them adhere to the policies that they formulate. If the school capacity of a school's admission is 400 students translating to that school in grade 10, let no pressure allow them to take beyond the 400, Madam Speaker. This will ensure that all the amenities in that school will be enjoyed by the students in that school. It is hell when a student goes to a school with very high expectations, Madam Speaker, yet they squeeze in a dormitory. They cannot sleep comfortably. Food gets finished when they are in the queue because that school does not have the capacity. Honorable Madam Speaker, improving our infrastructure will be in vain because the more we improve one particular school and disregard even the other schools, the more that school will be overcrowded. So for us to have a cure of all this, Madam Speaker, it is very simple. Let us adhere to the policies that we formulate. Let this House be in the forefront of ensuring that when we pass this motion by Honorable Gisialo, the implementation part of it is followed to the letter. Because, Madam Speaker, we don't want to be a house that comes here, debates a motion, passes it unanimously, and there is no follow-up of the same. I would want to see a different scenario, Honorable Madam Speaker. Next year, January grade 10, that every school admits the capacity that the ministry has allowed them to admit. Madam Speaker, even capitation that we are talking about, capitation, because if we over-enroll, the capitation that will go to that particular institution will not match with the students in the institution. So, Honorable Madam Speaker, I support this motion, and I want to say, let us walk the talk. Thank you, Honorable Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. The Honorable Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And Madam Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Gitsairo for bringing this important motion. And Madam Speaker, I think it's very notable that this motion is brought by Honorable Gitsairo, who is a one-term proponent, and seconded by Honorable Irene Mayaka, a two-term proponent. Madam Speaker, I wanted to say this before I commence because I want our young people outside there to note that members of parliament are not taking pangas and cutting themselves. And I also want them to note that Honorable Gesairo is a man and has not raped Honorable Irene. They are members of parliament from different sides and are not killing each other. We are basically doing the work for the country. So don't allow yourself as a young person to be misused when you see honorable members in the House are doing totally the opposite of what you are doing out there as a young person. Madam Speaker, having said that, I want to speak very briefly to this, that on my way here, I actually saw some construction on the road. And I felt sad because that's what comes to my mind every time. That when I see this construction, I'm like, so who the hell is sitting here now? Because in Kenya, we hardly come up with the new things unless we want to make money out of it. Even though sometimes good comes out of it, and sometimes good doesn't come out of it. But when you see that we are giving the police new uniform, somebody wants to make money. You ask yourself, so what was wrong with the old uniform of the police? And Madam Speaker, if you see us changing education system, when we have not had a problem with the old one, it's because somebody wants to corruptly make money. And I've listened to Honorable Gesairo very carefully. And I'm actually shocked that some C1 schools are getting, the heads of some of the C1 schools are controlling close to 1 billion shillings a year. Madam Speaker, if I was corrupt, I would actually resign from being a member of parliament and go to become a principal of a C1 school. Because it's much easier then to get a lot of money. And when I listened to some of the members, I heard that this system, the education system, is controlled by cartels. And that is why, Madam Speaker, you see that, today there's a member of the County Assembly of Homa Bay was struggling to say a very simple English word, but he wants to become a member of parliament from a county assembly, cannot speak, cannot control, cannot communicate, both in Kiswahili and in English, but he wants to become the member of parliament for Ndiwa. And why would we make it possible? Because again of corruption. Madam Speaker, I think some of these policies before they pass, that is why we provided issues of public participation and the National Assembly. They need to be seriously interrogated. You don't just wake up as a ministry one day and say, from today we are moving from national schools to C1. What is the mischief you are trying to cure from the old system? Madam Speaker, we are killing the smaller schools in our constituencies. Yesterday, some people came to visit me from my constituency regarding a school called Kayanja that has been doing very well. Now, one of the grades has 7 students because everybody is running to C1 and C3 schools. And then we are going to have very, very poor, education because teachers are exhausted, they are suffering burnout, while other people are making money. And beyond what Gesairo is doing, I think these are issues that I don't know whether the Committee on Education has dealt with this, Madam Speaker. But these are things that as Parliament sometimes we need to put our foot down. You can't have schools like Alliance having more than their fair share simply because money must come with the number of students. We have recently seen students and arrests. And I heard Honorable Mukamias House moving a very good motion on counseling for children in schools. But why are we counseling? We are the ones who are we are the cause of the problems. We are the ones who are putting too much pressure. How can one teacher be responsible for 500 students, Madam Speaker? It's not a political rally. Those are schools, Madam Speaker. And when we have that situation, that is how we will have children who will grow up who are indisciplined, children who don't listen to anyone, children who do not care how the society is and have no values. because the values are no longer inculcated in schools. How will you be inculcating values to students who are 4,000 in one stream, Madam Speaker? I think this should actually, if you are serious as a country, this should be considered a crisis and dealt with as a crisis. And I think as Parliament, we need to put our foot down. There are too many changes that are going on that we don't understand why they are going on as a country. Explain to us before you effect them. What is the purpose of some of these changes? If something is good, don't change it. You can improve it, but don't change what is working. And whenever we try and change what is working, we create up more messes, Madam Speaker. So I want to thank Honorable Gesairo, and I hope the Ministry of Education is listening. And if they are not listening, let Parliament put its foot down and deal. And let us go back, if we need to go back to the old system, let it be so. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Honorable members, I think we can also be encouraged by the fact that motions are no longer just urging. It is resolving. So I think that is a very positive change. I mean, that has been made in Parliament. So I believe that these motions will be, after they are passed, they can be implemented. The Honorable Mudende.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this very important motion by my colleague, Honorable Gesairo. And though he is one term and I'm two term, this is for Kenya and we stand together. I must say, for constituencies like where I come from, Mbeere North, which has been marginalized for very long, the main thing we can offer our people is education. Quality education will guarantee their success in future. Unfortunately, this is not so because of a myriad of factors, some of which are going to be addressed by this motion if adopted. One, most of our students go to C4 schools. Yeah, and you find that the infrastructure in these schools, which is addressed by point number 3, is not adequate. Most schools don't even have laboratories, they don't have enough teachers, some schools don't even have enough classrooms. And it's not always that most of the students in these schools are there because of poor grades. There are some students who cannot afford these other schools and they end up in a C4 school. Imagine if you have a student who has qualified for C1, they cannot afford and they end up in a C4 and you condemn them, yeah, because of poor infrastructure. Sometimes they don't even have science teachers, and you end up messing the life of such a student. That's why I really support this motion. Point number 3, ensure the ministry, when you register a school, let it not just be to increase the number of registered schools. Let the infrastructure be sufficient. Let them have enough teachers so that if you end up with a student who has qualified for a C1 school in a C4 school, then they are guaranteed of success. And as mentioned by a member of parliament here during the contribution, there are C4 schools which are doing very well, but if you look at those schools, they have proper infrastructure. Most of them are near towns, like I have such a school in my constituency. Now coming to capitation. So you have a school which registers very few students in terms of enrollment, and they have the same infrastructure. They need a gate man, they need a cook, they pay for electricity. So if you have few students, it means even if you get capitation, and I know most members of parliament here through bursaries, they support schools, then the school cannot even support payment of support staff. So it's important that we look at this recalibration, that's the word used in this motion, so that we don't end up with overcrowding in some schools, so they have...
Order. Honorable Gachagua, you have a point of order?
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, I wanted to request under Standing Order number 95, whether that we are all in agreement, whether we can maybe, Madam Speaker, request the mover to reply. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Before I check whether it's a mood of the House, I will allow the Honorable Amudende to finish.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. So, to make it short, is we need to ensure quality in our schools, quality of education, good infrastructure, so that our students do not get a road deal. And this is a bill that is. This is a motion that we actually need to support as this House, because it will help all Kenyan learners. With that, Madam Speaker, I support the motion.
Thank you, Honorable Amudende. Honorable members, I'll put the question to confirm whether the Honorable Gachagua, who rose on Standing Order number 95, whether it is the mood of the House that the mover be called to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. So, mover, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, I would like to thank all the members who've contributed to this motion, because this motion is meant for the good of our children, for the good of the education system in this country, to ensure that we do not commercialize the education sector, but instead ensure that the education sector is meant and is designed to impart knowledge to our young children. Honorable Speaker, it is our belief that once this motion is passed, the capitation formula will be recalibrated to ensure that even schools with minimum students does get adequate funds to support its operations. Honorable Speaker, that when this motion is implemented, the resolutions of this House, that there will be no overcrowding in schools in the coming 3 years, because all C1 schools, none will be exceeding a given number of students, in this case 1,200, and that cascades downwards all the way to C4 schools, and ensure that our schools have students, and therefore our teachers are properly spread to support the spread of number of students. Last, Honorable Speaker, this will force the ministry to ensure that infrastructure in C3 and C4 schools is revamped and resources put there to ensure that every child in this corner, as Honorable Amudende said, not all C4 schools have students who didn't qualify to C1 schools. Some are there because of circumstances. We need this child to have an equal opportunity like the child in a C1 school where he had qualified to attend. Honorable Speaker, with that, I beg to reply.
I'll give chance to you, to the Honorable Millie. You may sit. It's quite long. So, thank you, Honorable members. I'll now put the question that aware that Kenya's education sector has faced escalating infrastructure pressures, culminating in overstretched facilities, particularly in boarding schools, concerned that despite the introduction of an online learner placement portal in December 2025 by the Ministry of Education to widen access, and expedite transfers among schools, there continues to be inequitable outcomes, disproportionately disadvantaged rural learners who suffer digital exclusion, acknowledging that parental preference for Category 1, C1, and Category 2, C2 schools, owing to their improved infrastructure, including boarding amenities, causes over enrollment in C1 and C2 schools, recalling that during the inaugural admission of grade 10 learners into senior schools in January 2026, under the competency-based curriculum, some C1 and C2 schools invariably admitted learners at double or more of their approved capacity, noting that the tendency leaves most Category 3, C3, and Category 4, C4 schools severely under-enrolled, some below their viable enrollment capacity, concerned that the current capitation model based on the number of learners per school is not only misaligned with actual school facilities, but also encourages over-enrollment by some schools in pursuit of their capitation funding, observing that the resultant overcrowding in C1 and C2 schools has eroded the recommended teacher to student ratio 1:40, fueled teacher burnout, diminished instructional quality, affected individual learner attention, overstretched facilities, and compromised learner safety in cases of emergencies. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with other relevant government agencies and stakeholders, 1, recalibrates the education capitation formula to reflect the actual infrastructural capacity and ensure that schools receive proportional and equitable capitation so as to incentivize enrollment diversification and achieve equitable distribution of learners across the school categories. 2, develops and enforces guidance for capping the number of streams per category of schools at maximum of 10 for C1 schools, 8 for C2, 5 for C3, and 3 for C4 schools, while each stream not exceeding 40 students. And 3, implements a targeted and accelerated infrastructure upgrade program in C3 and C4 schools, including classrooms, laboratories, ICT hubs, boarding, sanitation, and amenities, so as to achieve infrastructure standardization across all categories of schools, safeguarding the quality of education and systematically eliminate overcrowding in C1 and C2 schools. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 15, motion, recruitment and remuneration of community and health promoters.
So, thank you very much. Honorable members, before we move to the next order, I would like to recognize students seated this morning inside Parliament, students from we have students seated in the Speaker's Gallery this morning from Soy Mening Junior School, from Eldamaravine constituency, Baringo County. You may stand to be recognized. You are welcome to the National Assembly to observe proceedings of the House. Honorable members, we also have students seated in the public gallery this afternoon, students from Live and Learn School in Nakuru West constituency, Nakuru County. You are welcome to the National Assembly to continue observing proceedings of the House. Honorable Murungara, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that, aware that the community health promoters, popularly known as CHPs, play an integral role in the delivery of primary health care at the community level, by providing basic health services, including health promotion and education, disease prevention and early detection, support for maternal and child health interventions, and community mobilization. Further, aware that community health promoters serve as the first point of contact between households and the formal health system, concerned that despite their important contribution to the realization of the universal health coverage and the attainment of the highest attainable standard of health under Article 43(1) of the Constitution, community health promoters continue to discharge these critical duties with inadequate facilitation and insufficient remuneration, acknowledging that proper facilitation, motivation, and fair remuneration of community health promoters would enhance service delivery, strengthen preventive health care, and reduce pressure on health facilities, cognizant of the fact that health policy is a function of the national government. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the national government formulates and implements a policy framework to guide on the recruitment, remuneration of the community health promoters across the country. Honorable Speaker, this is a very important motion in that it deals with community health promoters, the successors in title to the community health volunteers who served this country for a while, but dedicatedly. Honorable Speaker, you recall that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the community health volunteers came up as a stopgap measure to ensure that we do adhere to hygienic measures that were put in place by the Ministry of Health to avert the calamity, the catastrophe that was about to befall us, the country, and the world because of the COVID-19 pandemic. These volunteers went around the country promoting health care, but without any remuneration. They were volunteers. And similar to them were a group of people we have just looked at recently called the area managers or the village elders. Again, who went around the country discharging their duties, very important in administration, but without any remuneration. Madam Speaker, this government came into power on an undertaking that it would be a bottom-up government. We would start with those who are down, bring them up to middle level, and eventually everybody should actually attain the top. Therefore, today, we discuss a very important sector of the health department of this country, who are actually the basic persons at the grassroots. At the grassroots where they are providing a very important service, but with insufficient facilitation, with very little remuneration, because no provision, no policy guidelines, nothing has been formulated for them, apart from being called upon first and foremost to volunteer, number two, to receive very basic training on basic health care, and then they are equipped with a rucksack on their backs, which has basic tools to do simple things like temperature tests, blood pressure, heart rates or heartbeats, etc., etc. But even as they traverse the country, the village is doing this, they are not remunerated well because they receive monthly stipends that, in my estimation, are basic and very poor, which cannot be said in any way to compensate what they do for us. A little of the stipends come from the national government. The rest of it is paid by the county governments. And you know, county governments, for up to the time would always complain they do not have exchequer, they do not have money, and these people have to go for long periods without drawing those very little miserable stipends. Having looked at what is bottom up, such that we look at those who are at the grassroots, I now urge this House to actually consider this motion in a very favorable manner. And the manner is that we must formulate, as we are going to do for the village managers, the village elders, whom I was privileged on the 28th of February 2019 to bring a motion to this House regarding their remuneration. And today, in as much as they do not have remuneration properly scheduled, they do have stipends that are going to them for the very first time since independence. So we are making a step forward, and it is this step forward which we now want to extend to the community health promoters. The community health promoters are strewn across the country, and they do equivalent amount of work right from the villages to the sub-locations and locations. We cannot go on and just continue to have people rendering a great service to the country without proper facilitation. Number one, without proper remuneration. If we do this, then we go against what we have actually sworn to do in our better program for the country, the bottom-up economic transformation, which is what we are anchored on. Therefore, today, we debate right from Article 43(1) of the Constitution, which provides for universal health care for the country.
Order, Honorable Murungara. I can see the happiness in your face as you move this extremely important motion. However, in the interest of time and because of the way activities are scheduled in this House, your time is up. Honorable members, Honorable Murungara will conclude moving this motion when it's next scheduled by the House Business Committee on, I believe that it will be on Wednesday next week, and you have a balance of 13 minutes to do so. Honorable members, and the time honorable members, and the time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, 19th August 2026 at 2:30 p.m.
Spray? Huh? Will you spray you? Spray, Nini?